Do you feel like all your practice is not getting you anywhere with playing jazz? Most beginners miss a few simple habits that are essential to avoid getting stuck. With 20 years of experience helping students overcome these plateaus, I know which habits to build. So in this video, I'm going to show you the 3 easy habits that you need to boost your progress and also have a lot more fun playing jazz. Most students think it's all about playing more exercises, memorizing more scales, or just practicing more hours, but that is exactly what keeps people stuck. In reality, these simple habits are much more efficient, making practice easier and helping you feel a lot more confident playing jazz. Let's start with the first simple habit that I also struggled to learn. A few years ago, I was checking out a Kurt Rosenwinkel workshop on YouTube, and he said something that really surprised me. When I learn a song, I always spend an hour just playing the melody. Now, to be honest, my first reaction was,
why would you do that?
But because I'm a huge fan, I still gave it a try, and it works mind-blowingly well for a few reasons. Plus that there's an ear training bonus that I'm gonna show you in a second. The better you know the melody, the stronger you are connected to the form. So when you're soloing, you're not counting bars or thinking chord symbols in your head. Nobody does that. You hear the melody, and that is what keeps you locked in with the form. The melody is how you actually hear the harmony. So when I was studying at the conservatory, my teacher told me about how he would work with touring soloists, mostly horn players from the US, who would teach them songs by playing the melody and then in between add the chords as arpeggios. And that's exactly how we hear the harmony. It's a color under the melody. So the better you know the melody, the more naturally you internalize the chords. It shows how powerful it is to learn melodies by ear. Once I started to work like this more often, I also discovered that if I learned the melody by ear, I had to spend a lot less time to really get it into my system. And learning it by ear was the same as practicing. So you could almost choose whether you spend time with a lead sheet or just get it straight into your system by ear. And there's another bonus too. The way you practice this is really just playing the melody. Try different places on the neck, different tempos, anything you can think of. I find that other keys also gets a lot easier like this, and it doesn't feel like a lot of thinking when you play in another key. Learning to solo and comp the song gets so much easier when you really know the melody. Now, one warning, especially for some of my patrons, don't rush into chord melody, because if you start building a chord melody arrangement before you really know the melody, then you're just creating and playing a technical exercise, not internalizing the song. And that is one of the most common pitfalls that I see. Another huge bonus of really knowing the melody is that you can actually start soloing from the melody, and that can sound amazing. Sometimes I get questions from students who say, can I just solo from the melody instead of learning arpeggios and scales? And in most cases that's not a complete solution, but it's definitely worth exploring. Take a song that you know, like Autumn Leaves. Now already just by adding some enclosures to the melody and being a bit more free with the rhythm, you have something like this. So here I'm working with the melody as the source of everything. I'm not really thinking about the chords. So we have, of course, the basic melody that you probably already know. And then that first phrase is really just sort of reusing some of the notes in the melody and that way making the phrase longer. And of course you have that enclosure for the top note. Now in the next phrase, I'm first adding some passing notes, so some chromatic notes. Then I'm changing the rhythm and actually also working a lot more with the rhythm in this. First an enclosure around the target note of the melody, and then some chromatic passing notes. And even with this short example, I'm sure you can see how much you can do just using the melody as a source for your soloing. Really working on the melody like this is already very powerful, but the next habit is what Peter Bernstein talks about in this video clip. And it is one that almost nobody practices enough.
I think the main thing, and we won't stress this enough, is you have to practice comping. You know, for every 100 choruses you play, are you soloing 99 and comping once? Just to make your backing track?
It is often that I have to remind students to practice comping, similar to what Peter Bernstein is saying in this clip. You don't need a band to work on it. You can groove, explore harmony, test new voicings, and develop your timing all by yourself. It is really simple. Take a song that you know, put the metronome on 2 and 4, and comp a few choruses. And surprisingly, your goal is to comp the song until you get bored, as Peter Bernstein explains.
The main thing is that you're going to get bored of playing the same chords very quickly and find some other stuff. That's the best motivation is boredom. You know, bored. I don't want to play this chord again, so I'm going to find another chord. You know?
This comp until you're bored idea works because it is exactly how players get better on gigs. Here's how it works. When you run out of ideas, you have to come up with something new, but you build it from what you already know. You're not reinventing the wheel, you're just adding a better variation. That's practical, musical, and it sticks. I learned a lot of my comping skills like this as well. Back when I was studying at the conservatory, I did tons of cafe gigs, comping for singers and horn players, and we played 3 or 4 sets of standards, so I spent hours comping. And every night I'd hit a point where there was somewhere in the song where I thought, I only have this one voicing for that chord, and I'd have to fix it right there without messing up the song. And that's why it's so powerful. You're forced to expand your vocabulary bit by bit, right where you need it, not in a vacuum at home. It's like compound interest for your comping. At home you might collect a mountain of new voicings that never really make it into the music, but when you practice like this or gig this way, then everything connects and grows naturally, and the new things are put to use right away. Let me show you a quick example of how this works. Let's say that I'm comping the beginning of Just Friends, so really just 4/4 minor. If I already have basic voicings for this, then instead of hunting for a completely new chord, I can just add small variations. Or maybe I want a different movement on the 2/5 part of it. So I'm not flipping through a chord book for something fancy, I'm building on what I can already play and opening it up step by step. And that is how you make comping practice practical and musical, and it naturally feeds into your solos as well. Alright, now that you're getting better at comping, let's tackle the last habit, which is really more of a warning about a huge trap that stops players from ever sounding natural. I definitely got this wrong myself for a long time, so here's a big warning. Don't turn everything into an exercise. This goes for your soloing, your phrasing, your vocabulary, and yes, even chord melody. Think about the comping habit. You expand what you know step by step, staying musical, and soloing should of course be the same. If you turn every new lick or arpeggio into a neat little etude, it might sound clean in practice, but it won't show up in your actual solos. Same thing with chord melody. If you jump straight to creating fancy chord melody arrangements, you stop learning the melody and start practicing chords and technique. It's the same trap. I realized this back when I'd learned a bunch of bebop hits, but my solos still didn't sound like bebop at all. I had the notes, but not the phrasing, because I never got those lines into my own playing. And I talk about that process more in an upcoming video that I made with Pritasvalya, but here's a quick way to fix it. Let's take a simple phrase from Scrabble from the Apple. Check this out. Let's take a phrase out of this and then work on being able to use that in a solo. Now this is sort of a 3-step process. The first step is to find and analyze the phrase. So we'll use this. So essentially this is just a descending triplet arpeggio, in this case a G minor 7, followed by an enclosure of the root of that arpeggio, so the G, and then a descending interval skip. Now to me, that's sort of the basic recipe for the lick. Step 2 is then to take a song that you already know and move that phrase around the progression out of time. Let's take the beginning of There'll Never Be Another You. I'm sure you can still hear the basic lick even though it's on different chords as I move it around the form. Now, this takes a little time to get used to, but it is really worth it. And make sure that you can actually play what you come up with, not just write it down. Otherwise, it won't get you anywhere. Step 3 is to start using it in solos, and don't be afraid to make mistakes when you do. Plus that you don't have to have a complete written exercise here. It has to be you putting this lick to use in real time and connecting it to the rest of your vocabulary. This very practical approach to learning soloing is similar to how you'll find Joe Pass works with chords. You start with something simple and expand it bit by bit. He always works like this, both in comping and chord solos. If you struggle to vary your comping and want to open up your chord voicings, then check out his method in this video. I break down his system, and it is one of the easiest ways to develop a vocabulary of flexible and practical chords. Check it out, learn jazz, make music.